just very immediately as you looked at Ohio State's offense, where you struggled with certain similarities that you saw, formations, spacing, tempo, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, they have some similarities to, we played, while I was at Oklahoma, I had played Coach Meyer when he was at Florida with Tebow. And to see where it is, there's some similarities still. And they've, like anything, you continue to evolve and tweak it and improve it, and then you build it around your players. And very balanced. Got some excellent skill guys around J.T. Barrett. He's a great leader, got a good physical presence to him. Got a real toughness to him that jumps out on the screen. Critical situations, he makes plays time and time again. Watched him just before this year too in Ohio State. Just as a fan of college football, always had great respect for Coach Meyer and the success that they've had, and always try to study offenses too, and know that you see something new on any given Saturday, watching the TV, that you better go ahead and start practicing it, because we're all copycats and they all go to the same offensive clinic. And so they do a great job, the proverbial RPOs and the quarterback run game, and that's difficult, particularly if the quarterback can throw it as well. When he's, you got to account for extra, hat. It's hard to account for, and it's like playing Georgia Tech. It's a lot of triple option principles, gap integrity. Starts with the dive, and you better have that edge set on the outside, and then the play action passes. Again, I watched it with a lot of stress. I watched Georgia Tech play, and it's 3rd and 23, and they're completing it, like it's Joe Namath back there. And anytime you watch Georgia Tech, and everybody's like, how are they doing that? It's, they're not supposed to be able to throw the ball. And of course, Ohio State's a lot better at throwing probably than Georgia Tech. But the reason they're able to, throw the ball with, again, high percentage completion is just because of the stresses that the run game, forces your hand on defense.
Conceptually, it seems similar to what you guys are about. Is that too much to say?
I think there's a lot of similarities. There's more similarities than not, without question. And they do a great job. Tim Beck was a GA at Kansas State when I was a player. He's their OC. But then he was a longtime high school coach in the Metroplex there in Dallas while I recruited there. And so I've known Tim as long as I've known any coach in college football. And he's always done a great job, whether he's at Nebraska or since he's been there at Ohio State as well. So they've done a great job. They've got some special players, skill-wise. Starts with number 4, and boy, Mike Weber's a really good, tough runner as well. Nice compliment between the tackles and get outside as well. And big old tight end, makes a great play in 3rd and 18 down the middle against Michigan. When they had struggled to get much going in the throwing game, they make a huge play. Great throw, great catch, and tight coverage to set up that game-time field goal. And they got Big 80 on the outside. He makes every big play when they got to have one on the outside. Not single-handedly, but he was a big factor in them pulling away early in that Oklahoma game, making some terrific plays. He had the one where he catches on the. Are you Ohio State guy or no? Where he catches on the back of the DB. Just a crazy play. I remember watching that game thinking, golly, how are they reloading? Because I know they had lost. I was at the draft last year, second draft. Not like it's a yearly thing, but was there, and they one after the other Ohio State guy gets taken, and then to see them back where they are is pretty remarkable. Not a real surprise. That's just Urban's a winner. Knows how to recruit, got a great staff. They know how to coach, and one thing that you always see about his football teams, they just kind of get better and better and better as the year goes on. And so,
Brent, you mentioned that there was some element of the option to it when you watch Ohio State's offense go. I've got 2 separate questions about that. One, why can Ohio State run with J.T. Barrett and get 6 yards when a lot of people might know it's coming? I mean, they rely on that play a lot, and it seems like they just get 6 yards every time. Just dive up the middle. There you go. 2.
Thanks. No, I've convinced myself it's not 6. It's less than 6, but now it's back to 6. No,
it might be 8.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. I hear you.
Or one.
But also at the same time, they've been very successful running, and you said that they're very good at passing, but at times this season they've really struggled in that area. And I was wondering when you watch the film, might they struggle with, or what might be the reason for it?
Well, I mean, if there's a struggle, again, remember they're in the playoffs, so they hadn't struggled that much. All right, let's be clear. If they have, I mean, it's throwing situations too, and so, people are dialed up, to stop the throws too. Why is he having so much success? Because it's not like he just takes it and runs the quarterback ISO, and they'll do that too. Usually there's another component, whether it's formationally, where there's formationally, there's tempo, there's an edge run that's tied into it, an outside run. There's a read, he's doing what the DN's telling him to do. Just like Thomas does at Georgia Tech. If that end's crashing, he's pulling it. He ends up the field, he's ducking it, and it's a constant, stress to you, but it all starts with the dive, and they know that, so they can do it lots of different ways. They can give you the dive in your face with the quarterback pulling it, with a quarterback pitch, with a quarterback throw, all in one play. And so you have to have those four components covered. That's why it's so successful. And then when you have an experienced guy that's a gifted runner, he's going to have success more than not. And then they do a great job putting him in successful situations. And so they're not just lining up in 2x2 and the back's here. That's not what they do. They do all kinds of window dressing, and then they have very explosive players to help complement that quarterback run. And when you got a guy like Four, you better be focused on. Somebody's got to be focused. You can't have the whole defense focused on him, but you better be able to match up and defend the components that he's a part of too. And they do a good job of tying that in together, not separate. It's not like they get in the eye backs and run the toss to Four. They'll have the jet with the zone, right, with the pop pass, and you better have them all covered. And that's not easy to do,
Does Samuel remind you of anybody that you've?
I'm sorry?
Does Samuel remind you of anybody that you've
A lot
game
like
planned
Percy
against?
Harvin, probably a little more versatile. That's convenient for me to say. We're getting ready to play him. I believe that though. Having seen Percy had incredible speed. Samuel can get at tailback and really be an effective, explosive freak at running the football out of the pistol or offset, and then running the jet sweep, and then he lines up in that slot and does a heck of a job as a receiver too. Kind of can do it all. And you just don't see that very much in college football, and we don't have that guy on offense. Artavis is almost there, but he's not at tailback. Maybe he could. We don't use him that way, and I'm not sure that we've seen any other single player like him this year.
Do you assign somebody to him, like a nickel or a slot?
He's everywhere. He's everywhere. Michigan attempted to do that, and there's some times when okay, that's good, but some other times when you're trying to be perfectly matched up, that it screws everything else up, and gave up some plays because everybody's having to adjust off of one guy. It's not easy. It's a lot harder to do than you would think because they move them everywhere.
How were you able to fill all the holes as successfully as you did from the defense you had last year?
Well, you got to recruit well, and you get lucky, and then I think we do a great job developing our guys. Our defensive line coaches, Marion Hobby, Dan Brooks, Mike Reed in the secondary, our strength and conditioning coaches. It's really that simple. But coaching them and developing them, getting them ready. We play a lot of guys typically. A lot of these guys have played. You get a guy like Christian Wilkins that, we lost our starting DN at the beginning of the year to a broken foot in Austin Bryant, and we would have really, we might not have had the kind of success we did early had it not been for a very versatile special player in Christian Wilkins. to slide up and play the end at 310 pounds, and do it, above average. Not just line a guy up. I've had to do that before, and you try to cover them up and help them. But and again, I think systematically, we're 5 years in. We've had, a very little turnover from a staff standpoint. So just everybody being on the same page. It's easier to plug guys in that way when you're not changing philosophies and coaches and having to coach coaches, every year. And then we go against, as good as the offense and good players as there is. So I think iron sharpens iron and helps guys develop faster than not. And so all those things.
Are you intense in everything you do?
I don't know. I mean,
That's
I don't
the
feel.
word everybody
I'm very,
uses when I ask them to
I
describe.
mean, I'm just like anybody. George says yes. I'm just very focused. I'm pretty single-minded in whatever the task is. Learned that a long time ago from Bill Snyder, and don't ever get too comfortable, and always think about, well, what if that doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? But as much as anything, thinking the players will feed off of you, your mindset, your attitude, what you expect, and that's how I was brought up in the coaching profession, and a lot of accountability, a lot of discipline. Coming from Kansas State at that time, we had to get more out of less, and outcoach some people and develop the fundamentals, and very simple in how you win this game. It's no different today than it was 20 some years ago or 100 years ago. Toughness and effort and fundamentals and technique, and you go back and reload and do it again. And so I love what I do. I'm very passionate about it. Make no apologies for that. Not everybody is built the same, but be who you are. This is who I'm comfortable being, and again, I feel very fortunate to coach this game. This is my job, and I love to do it, and don't ever look at it as stressful. I think it's just a way to compete every day, and to have a chance to be successful and to be competitive and stay near the top. I think you got to have that mindset, and you can't grow weary, with that.
Brent, I asked Carlos Watkins today about that Twitter sensation, that drop 11 defense y'all ran against Virginia Tech, and he said obviously somebody was supposed to rush one guy, but
we've had great success with that. It only and it's a read defense, and you're reading protection. We got 6, they got 5 blockers. Somebody should be free, and we guessed wrong.
Yeah.
And never had that happen, and unfortunately, I thought that was maybe kind of a turning point in that game. It's 3rd and 10 or whatever.
Right.
We'd been really in our nice rhythm defensively, and we're gonna sack him. We're gonna hit him very hard. He's gonna throw it away. He's gonna throw it to us. It's one of those, and that's it.
Yeah.
If we just execute.
But do you like to keep things fresh though? I mean, is it part of the thing of always being changed? I mean, like Urban Meyer's talking about you, and he's talking about the unpredictability of y'all's defense, of what to expect on 1st and 10.
I just
y'all
have
may be in a
respect.
nickel.
I have a lot of respect for people that you play.
Yeah.
Week in and week out, they're going to know what your tendencies are, and we do a lot of evaluating ourselves from week to week. What have we been shown? What have we been majoring in? And you can't, we're just going to out execute them. Okay, at times you have to. It still comes down to the things I just said. But I think that deception, and offenses are doing it more now than ever. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, come run down to here in the A gap. Why, throw it over your head, in your zone drop. And so I think that's a big part of the game. And not letting people get comfortable. And people are doing a lot with no huddle. So they're from week to week. People are. They're studying what you're doing, even from the sidelines, and getting your signals and things of that nature. So you gotta try to stay a step ahead.
Hey, Brent,
and I think you'd be naive if you don't.
You guys have a few, All-Americans or All-American candidates on your defensive line, and it might seem like an obvious question, but to have guys like that, like Watkins and Wilkins, how can they change a game, and especially when you're playing an Ohio State team that's had some trouble protecting this year?
Well, I mean, obviously, if they're winning, those one-on-one battles, it can disrupt the flow of an offense. That goes without saying. And, but never do I go into the game thinking, we're just going to dominate these guys up front. That's going to be great. That'll be I think things will go very well for us if that ever happens. So you got to find other ways to help them and to generate pressure and to be disruptive. And I think that's always helped them too. Our philosophy, being you drop 8 or come after them. We're going to come after them as opposed to dropping 8. If somebody says you got one or the other here, what are you going to do? And that's again not earth-shattering news, but I think that helps them, and so I think it also creates more opportunities when you are just rushing for 2. But it's not just rushing; it's also physically winning. In the run game, and Ohio State's won more than not in the run game, establishing the run game. And what are they? Are we 12-1? Are we both 12-1?
No, they're
I'd say
11.
it's
I'd say it's 11.
They
They
played
didn't play in
one
the
last
championship. Yeah, so they're 11-1. So it's been pretty dang good for them, and more so than not. And yeah, I mean,
that's how
trenches
they've
is
been
where these games are won. Everything's even. The talent's even. If it is, who wins one-on-one? It's the Paul drill. Across the board, and that's what wins this game.
Yeah, they run a 29 lead for their biggest play of the year so far. I mean, is that an example?
29 lead. That's
Yeah.
the play call.
Yeah, that was a play call with Kurt Samuel, and Weber comes out and gets that block. But that is a fairly basic. Is that what you're talking about Ohio State? They want to lull you to sleep with their whatever, but they will still come after you.
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's always, again, eye candy to a certain degree, but even their outside plays are physical. They're blocking on the edges. They're blocking with toughness. They're knocking your secondary guys backwards. That's a big part of their game too. Being physical on the edges, and that's the name of this game too. Sometimes it's all about the trenches, as far as the where all the attention goes. But winning outside is every bit as important. And I'm not talking about in the throwing game. You got to make competitive plays when the ball's in the air, but you've got to win outside, because when they get the inside and the outside run game going, and the run game can be the flare to 4, and a trip set, out there with their tight ends blocking, your nickel, and he's bloodying his nose, and that guy doesn't know which way to go, and they pick up 12 on a toss sweep. It's not a matter of if you lose, it's about a matter of how bad you're going to lose when you're losing those battles.
You said that your motto is, well, you said you keep thinking, well, what if that doesn't work? And that's how you get your game plan set up.
What if what doesn't work?
Yeah, you said a couple minutes ago, well, what if that doesn't work? And
Yeah.
That's how you, at what point in the week do you say that's enough?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I remember Coach Snyder asking Coach Stoops one time, getting ready to play Nebraska, what if your 2 technique's getting reached? And he kept going back to that, And Coach would talk about something else, and then Coach Snyder kept saying, well, what if your 2 technique gets reached? Coach, if our 2 technique gets reached, they're going to blow us out of the stadium. What do you want me to do? There's no answer, to that. It's 2 technique shouldn't get reached, but Nebraska somehow seemed to always do it. But again, it comes down to execution, and coaches often get too much credit. When everything's going great, it comes down to some simple, basic, fundamental things. Pad level, punch at the point of attack, being physical at the point of attack. Running through blocks, sealing an edge. It's very, very fundamental to how this game will be won in most games. And that doesn't grab all the headlines, I know, but if things are evenly matched, those are the hidden plays. That little swing pass that gets 8 to 10. When in our world on defense, that thing should go for 2. And again, you got to do the basic things very well. and you know, smoke and mirrors aside, exotic blitzes. You know, no, that's not how this game's won. It's the very fundamental things.
You might have been asked before, but when Tajh came in, can you just talk about how you come in and then what you got out of that?
Well, I think it gets everybody else a little more excited for how much I challenge them. I challenge them mentally, you know, to get lined up faster, to adjust faster, to I can handle the tempo when I'm doing it, and then I can give them just a little bit of time when they need to adjust, or I can talk them through something that's getting ready to happen, you know. Tajh, he instantly gets them to step up their game, and because they know he's going to throw it on time with a lot more velocity, and then the physical run game, you know, aspect of it, you know, where whether you run a quarterback power or a quarterback counter or something like that, that aspect, you know, Tajh he's ACC Player of the Year, and broke all kinds of records, and you know was. Got a great legacy, very special legacy at Clemson. So our players are very aware of him, and he takes us up.
Cordero, seeing that you watched the Orange Bowl from a few years ago when you guys played Ohio State. What did you want them to get out of? Want you guys to get out of that?
Well, they were a very senior-laden offensive line, very physical, experienced group with Carlos Hyde and Braxton Miller. One of the, you know, Carlos, arguably the best running back in America, and Braxton Miller, one of the most dynamic players in America, with a, you know, with that type of offensive line. Again, that was, you know, for our guys, you know, we matched up physically well with them in that game. That was to me the name of the game.
So you just wanted your guys to see the way that you performed back then, because I mean, there's different personnel now.
So what do you mean wanted to see?
Like when Cordero said that you guys watched that game recently.
Yeah.
What did you want your players to get?
Scheme. What they were doing scheme-wise is things that caused us problems. You know, the wheel routes, the throwbacks, the motions, you know. Some things, that, again, those things just aren't going to go away.
Right.
And our guys, when they watch stuff like that and they see that paw on the side of the helmet, they relate to that. It's different than watching that happen to Wisconsin. You know, they get up on the edge of that seat when it happened to us in the Orange Bowl. You know, that's why we watched it. Okay. You know, it wasn't all, we won a game. I'm not sitting there watching all the great plays we made. That's not what we're watching. We're watching, here's how they got after us. You know, here's why that game was close.
To kind of like give like, hey, this could.
They still do the same stuff. You know, and they've evolved in lots of ways.
Okay.
You know, you're not showing them to show physically what the game was about. You're showing them scheme-wise. That's why. You know.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I got another question.